You're listening to the Out of Bounds Show, fueled by Fleetway Market. Whether you're on the road to the tailgate or headed up to hunting camp, stop by Fleetway Market to fuel up the car and the cooler today.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
It's all coming back
From the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the BankPlus Studio.
And there it comes again.
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show. The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
What is that?
What is that?
The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome in. ESPN 105.9 The Zone, WRKS. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by the great steaks, including the bone-in filet at Kessler Prime and the Renaissance. Visit KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. You can hit us up on the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-995-1059. Twitter handle at BoBounds. And the Ag Up Equipment. It was Mississippi Ag. Now it's Ag Up Equipment. Text line 601-885-3776. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for making us your sports and entertainment show of choice. In the great state of Mississippi, we want to welcome in Russell's Reserve Bourbon, official bourbon of the Out of Bounds Show. Part of the Wild Turkey family, their premium line, Russell's Reserve. And check it out at Briarwood Wine and Spirits or wherever you dive in for your wine and spirit store. We're going to be doing a lot with them in 2022. You got your steak and bourbon game on Saturday night with the Cowboys and Eagles. Stop by. And, again, Briarwood Wine and Spirits or your wine and spirit store and grab a bottle of Russell's Reserve. It is phenomenal juice. Great bourbon. We're very, very excited to partner with them. We'll be going to Kentucky and having some fun in 2022 to do the whole deal. I've been to their distillery, but we're going to get to go behind the scenes and so on, and we'll tell you about it. And we're very, very, very excited to get back up to Louisville and Lexington and all that. Russell's Reserve. And they've got a couple of ryes, too. Those pair well with cigars from Havana Smoke Shop or wherever. And, from Havana Smoke Shop. And please drink responsibly, but enjoy a glass of Russell's Reserve. Make a toast to football season. We got the NFL this weekend. We've got all this transfer stuff, players opting in to the NFL, to the transfer portal, Blake. Mississippi, State got hit, I guess, early, right? You knew Charles Cross and Martin Emerson were gone.
Yep.
Scott Lashley just, I'm not sure what happened there, but he just said he wasn't going to play. You've had some other guys. The Mekhi Polk thing's tough for MSU. He's very productive. It's like Jerry on Ely. I mean, Mekhi Polk and Jerry and Ely could play, and they could make a big play for you at any time during the game. They could move it's all about moving the sticks. Some players can, and some players can't. Some players that you play really aren't move the stick guys. Ely could go get a first down or an explosive play, whether Corral was handing the ball off to him or throwing it to him. And Mekhi Polk could just played great this past year. Called over 100 footballs, and he could go get a first down for you, go get an explosive play for you, and had great hands. Really hadn't had a receiver like him in some time, right? I mean, Fred Ross ended up being pretty darn good, but and Bumpus never had he was never in a Will Rogers air raid type offense with that accurate of a quarterback. So although he played well and had to play day one as a true freshman because you had nothing at wide receiver, Kroom left and Mullen nothing at wide receiver, Bumpus was good for the jump, but if Bumpus would have been in like a Hugh Freeze, Mike Leach, Lane Kiffin offense, there's no telling. And if he would have had a guy who could sling it, And it doesn't even have to be Matt Corral, who's a first-round NFL talent. I mean, it could be like Will Rogers or Bo Wallace, guys that are very, very accurate at the college level. There's no telling what Chad Bumpus, what his numbers would have looked like. But Mekhi Polk can ball. Snoop Conner has decided to opt into the NFL. Snoop's a good player. He came out of nowhere. Nobody was talking about him when he signed. Wasn't even ranked in the top 30 players in the state of Mississippi. Ended up playing like a top 10 player. Ripped off some big plays. He was also a stick guy. He could go get a first down. I mean, man, if he got to the second level and he got those legs going, I mean, did you want to be the free safety that hit Snoop Conner? I didn't. Or the cornerback that's 5'10", 180? No, thank you. And so what Snoop could get to the second level, he liked to punish you, and he did. And he ended up having a good career. Will he make a team? I don't know, but I don't put it past, any of these guys, because if you can play in this league, a lot of times you can make the NFL. Ely, I think, is good. He's in. He'll make a team. If he stays healthy, he can play, however many years. 4 is a long time at that position, but you got to give Ely credit, too. He stayed pretty darn injury-free. He went through a couple of hiccups this year, but he's a little warrior. And strong as a bull for his size. A ping-pong ball. He's the same thing, though. If Ely got to the second level, he could run over you, but he could also run by you. He could hurt your feelings, and you would end up on the SEC network, with Chris Doring and Chiswick and Ben Watson and Dari Noka. Good morning. Welcome in. Blake Mania with me, Blake Scott, grinding through it. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. Hope you're doing well. Mudbugs is back open. We talked about it earlier in the show. They are open. Mudbugs open, 2 locations, Rankin County, slinging the best crawfish in the state of Mississippi. And their shrimp is amazing. And the mushrooms. And then Matt and them have, their nachos are great. Their sandwiches. Got a great selection of craft beer. Modelo on tap. Blue Moon. All kinds of wonderful beers that we have partnered with over the years. Modelo and Blue Moon are both top-notch brews. So Mudbugs is back open. Blake, we don't have time. All right. So I thought I had to get into the Ole Miss MSU thing.
You kept rambling.
Well, maybe I am.
I'm teasing. Jerry and Ely, by the way, projected as a day 3, which would be rounds 4 through 7.
Okay. All right. So don't forget, for our listeners, a lot of you will say, well, I don't understand why Ely's going. Okay. One, think about the any of these guys on the field we know can take a shot and lose a year of playing because of tearing up your ankle, knee, hip, arm, whatever. But Ely obviously plays running back. He returned, special teams. And the bottom line is, there's only so much time you have with those shoulders, ankles, knees, hips, right?
Yep.
And he's going to make a team unless something happens. He is perfect for the NFL. Again, I go to Tony Pollard. But there's a lot of other backs out there that fit the bill. And, by the way, if you make the team, $700,000.
And one of the questions I always...
$700,000, Blake.
Yeah, no, it's a no-doubter for that side. One of the questions I always ask is, can a player improve his ability to get drafted by coming back, right? That's the question. Because if you're coming...
he can't.
Exactly. If you're coming back, that's the question you have to ask yourself as a player. Jerry and Ely cannot. Charles Cross cannot. Matt Corral cannot, right? They're at their upper peak of draftability. And so there's no reason to stay.
Ely, if he stays healthy, can play 4 or 5 years in the NFL. Some of you go, that's it? Guys, that's an eternity. If he plays more than that, that's like 7 lifetimes.
You never have to work again if you do it right.
Yeah, if he can get to that second contract, regardless of what he does in that second contract, see Zeke Elliott, it won't be that big, but you know what I mean. If you can get to that, especially at running back or whatever he's going to do a bunch of different stuff. But, man, if you can get to that second contract in the NFL now with the money, he'll never have to work again a day in his life. So, We'll have Steve Palazzolo at 8:30, and guess what? We're going to drop some Aaron Rodgers audio coming up next. Aaron's not backing down, and I love it. He may be my second favorite player in the NFL. Back in a second. Out of bounds.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is presented by the Premium Cigars at Havana Smoke Shop. Visit their 2 locations, I-55 in Jackson and on the Res, for your premium cigar needs. Only at Havana Smoke Shop.
Good morning. Welcome in. Blake Scott with me. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. Will the Thrill somewhere. And I hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. Good time of year. NFL playoffs, March Madness around the corner. Of course, we'll have the Super Bowl, NFL playoffs, then the Super Bowl. I guess, can't forget we have another signing day, but MSU and Ole Miss are going to load the boat with some transfers, too. It's almost like the December signing day and then the transfer portal is bigger than February 3rd now. It'd be interesting to see how many players at the end of the day the two programs bring in, and then how many can get in the two deep by Labor Day. Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, driven by the pre-owned and new SUVs and trucks, Mack Hike and Flowwood. Mack Hike and Flowwood. All right, so they've got inventory for days. A lot of dealerships don't, unfortunately, by the way. But Mack Hike and Flowwood is loaded up with SUVs and trucks. So if you're in the market, MacHikeFlowwood.com. Tell them we sent you. That'd be great. Mack Hike and Flowwood. Ram truck, but anything. Pre-owned, new SUVs and trucks. All right, a big story before we get into Steve Palazzolo. I'm going to go a little NFL quarterback. Most talented quarterback playing in the game today. Not the most accomplished, but most talented is Aaron Rodgers, and which is amazing considering his age. It does not look like he's 38. He's playing like he's 28. And Green Bay is on a roll, and there's been talk of Aaron Rodgers as an MVP. And Hub Arkush is a Chicago Bears, but kind of a national NFL guy. We've had him on the show. And by the way, he's very nice. But he's Hub Arkush is kind of like what you see on big media day to day. There is this incredible, just lack of self-awareness and arrogance, whether it's on the East Coast or West Coast. Look at COVID media, and they've done an awful job brainwashing and scaring the hell out of the country. And so Hub Arkush says, I'm not going to vote for Aaron Rodgers for MVP because, I quote, he's the biggest jerk in the league. And he said he wouldn't vote for Aaron Rodgers as MVP based on reasons not related to football. Well, it's because Aaron Rodgers hasn't been vaccinated. And that should be, and it should always be, regardless of who, what, where, and when, his deal. We never in the history of this country have we worried about whether Blake took this medicine or I took this medicine or whatever. But all of a sudden we've got this radical group that, thinks they need to control the whole thing, tell you what you're supposed to do. So Aaron Rodgers, which is totally up to him, has decided not to get vaccinated. And Hub Arkush, out of the Chicago area, this shouldn't surprise you, national media, journalism, is absolutely ticked and has said, I won't vote for him as far as the MVP. This is what Aaron Rodgers had to say to combat Hub Arkush.
Think of one of the 50 voters coming out and saying yesterday, quote, I don't think you can be the biggest jerk in the league and punish your team and your organization and your fan base the way he did and be the MVP. I think he's a bad guy, and I don't think a bad guy can be the MVP at the same time.
I think he's a bum. I think he's an absolute bum. He doesn't know me. I don't know who he is. No one knew who he was probably until yesterday's comments. But, and I listened to the comments, but to say he had his mind made up in the summertime, in the off season, that, I had zero chance of winning MVP, in my opinion, should exclude, future votes. His problem isn't with me being a bad guy or the biggest jerk in the league. Because he doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything about me. I mean, I've never met him. I've never had lunch with him. I've never had an interview with him. His problem is I'm not vaccinated. So if he wants to go on a crusade and collude and come up with an extra letter to put on the award just for this season and make it the most valuable vaccinated player, then he should do that. But he's a bum, and I'm not going to waste any time worrying about that stuff. He has no idea who I am. He's never talked to me in his life. But it's unfortunate that those sentiments. It's surprising that he would even say that, to be honest. But yeah, I knew this was possible. Talked about it on McAfee weeks ago. But crazy.
Rob Domofsky.
First of all, kudos to Aaron Rodgers. And that was savage on Hub Arkush, the NFL media dude out of Chicago. Blake, maybe we're going to have a most valuable player and a most valuable vaccinated player.
I thought that was good. I thought it was also good how he went straight for the whole, who is this guy? Nobody's ever heard of her. That was pretty funny.
And I guess I'm not surprised that Aaron hasn't heard of him. I don't know what it looks like in Aaron Rodgers' world. He knows who the top, 30 guys are covering the NFL. And he deals with sideline report the best and so on. Either way, though, Hub Arkush has since come out and apologized. Blake, didn't you have that in front of you?
Yes, he wrote an article which, of course, was unlocked for previewing, where he basically said that he was apologetic. He should have never said those comments, and he regretted making those comments. And here's his full apology article.
Okay, all right. Well, I will never be able. I don't know what has happened. I can't put a finger on it other than the massive lecturing and talking down of people the last 2 years that we've been through this. But it needs to be to each its own. And, if you want to get vaxxed, great. And if you don't, that's fine too. There could be things that could happen either way. Nothing's 100%. So I cannot. Hub speaks for what we have witnessed on the East and West Coast. And we want to dictate, we want to lecture, and especially to all the flyover states. And it just, like the Sun Belts basically said, go to hell. We're going to keep our economies rolling. We're going to go to restaurants. We're going to vacation. We're going to get on planes. I've done all that. And for those that don't want to, that's great. But, man, it is unbelievable the things that I read of people that are still sitting on the sidelines. And, man, life is short, and I can't imagine taking, 2 years out of your life. And there are people who want to extend this thing, and it's just mind-boggling. Sitting on the sidelines is not going to make it go away. So, anyway, Blake, I think he's the MVP. I don't care if he's vaxxed or not vaxxed.
Yeah.
I think he's the MVP. Actually, I don't even think it's close, Blake, is it?
I think Tom Brady is actually there. His team hasn't quite done the record that Aaron's has, but statistically Tom's been pretty good. But I think Aaron will end up winning it.
Okay.
I do.
So Brady may be the most valuable vax player, and Aaron Rodgers can be the most valuable player. Is that,
the crazy thing is
and they can end up in the Bahamas in the offseason and hang out.
That's right. The crazy thing is Tom Brady really is going to get, at 40, 400 years old, he's going to get to prove what he's really made of, because he's lost his best receiver in Chris Godwin, and now he's lost a really good receiver that had been productive for them in Antonio Brown, and Mike Evans is still kind of banged up. So Tom Brady's going to get to earn that paycheck headed into the playoffs with Tampa Bay.
Brady's so good. How is he doing this at 44 years old?
It's unprecedented.
How
How
is Aaron doing this at 38?
Yeah.
I'm so happy for those guys. It's so much fun to watch people perform at a high level. Even, of course, the training is so amazing this day and age, and I think we'll see guys at certain positions be able to continue to perform at a high level. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's 28. Brady looks like he's 37. And it's going to be fun to see what they do in the playoffs. And I can't wait. They're both off the charts, great players. I think Aaron's the most talented player to ever play the position. And Brady's the most accomplished player to ever play the position. I cannot wait. And on the AFC side, what is going to happen? I have no idea how that's going to shake out. Steve Palazzolo, PFF.com, Pro Football Focus, NFL Insider. Coming up next on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone ESPN, powered by Superior Foundation for all your foundation repairs. Steve Palazzolo coming up next on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line.
You're listening to the Out of Bounds Show podcast, presented by Independent Roofing Systems. If you want it done right the first time, visit Independent Roofing Systems today.
Woo! All right, good morning. Welcome in. The Out of Bounds Show is powered by MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Is also presented by the Ram Trucks and Jeep Grand Cherokees at Mack Hike in Flowood. MackHikeFlowood.com for your next pre-owned or new Ram truck, Jeep Grand Cherokee, or any number of makes and models, pre-owned SUVs and trucks. The dealership, Mack Hike in Flowood, they're loaded up inventory-wise. That's not the case around the region. So they've got plenty of inventory for you if you're in the market for a pre-owned SUV or truck. MackHikeFlowood.com. Want to welcome in our friend Steve Palazzolo, PFF.com, Pro Football Focus, senior analyst and NFL insider. Steve joins us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. All right, Steve, we got to start with Dak Prescott. He's struggling. The Cowboys are struggling. Some people believe it's a combination of Dak, the offensive line holding a lot, and maybe Kellen Moore. But Dak is not as accurate as he has been. What do you see, and what does he need to do, Steve?
Yeah, obviously the offense is not as explosive as it has been. I thought he had, 2 weeks ago he had a really good game against Washington, but, these last few weeks, the entire body of work, basically since he came back from the calf injury, it's been inconsistent play from Dak. And I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I thought he was in a bit of a slump. I thought he was coming out of it a little bit. Maybe Washington's defense helped. But, yeah, I still think there's just a little bit of a slump, seeing the field, getting a little bit confused. I thought Arizona did some really nice things up front to maybe, make him hold the ball a tick longer. And he was, he's been under pressure about 13, 14, 15 times over these last few weeks. It's not a ridiculous rate, but those things add up a little bit. And the number that stands out to me is the sack rate. He's taken a few more sacks, not so much last week, but over these last few weeks when he's under pressure, right? So so meaning there's not an outlet. There's not somebody for him to get the ball to, and he's having to eat it and, take a negative play. So I think Dallas, look, they've got all the pieces. I think Kellen Moore's fine. I think Dak is fine. I think the receivers are fine. Just have to work through a bit of a slump and get back on track here.
But aren't they walking into a difficult situation as hot as the Eagles are Saturday night at Philly?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just talking about the Cowboys offense, I think they'll be okay against this Eagles defense. I think it's the type of defense that Dak could carve up. It's zone. There'll be open throws, and I think it'll be the right team maybe for Dak to as like a get right type of game. Now the other side of the ball is going to be fun and challenging because the Eagles' run game and what they're doing with taking the burden off of Jalen Hurts, creating more open throws, off the play action, and all that fun stuff. The Eagles' offense is doing some good stuff, like tapping into the fact that Jalen Hurts is a great runner and they have a massive offensive line that can move people. So I think that side of the ball will be good. It will be a great battle. But I like Dak and the Cowboys still as a better team, and I like the Cowboys offense to get back on track against the Eagles defense.
Okay, interesting. All right, would the Cowboys rather pull the L.A. Rams or I know they just lost to the Cardinals, but would they rather pull the L.A. Rams or the Cardinals in the playoffs, Steve?
Did I lose you guys?
I hope not. Can you hear me, buddy?
I got you.
Okay. All right. Would the Cowboys rather pull the Rams or the Cardinals in the playoffs?
I think, I don't know. I know they just lost to the Cardinals. I still think I'm a little bit more afraid of the Rams if I'm an NFC team. I think the Cardinals have been slightly overrated over this season, and I know they looked like they were slumping for a little bit, and they had the huge win last week. But I think the Rams just have more ways to beat you. The thing that would scare me about the Cardinals is DeAndre Hopkins coming back. Right? It would be if Hopkins comes back and they're full strength, and they do have this good group of playmakers, and like I said, a defense that does some good stuff schematically to kind of hide some of their deficiencies. But I think overall the Rams, with their elite playmakers on defense, their playmakers on offense, the high end that Stafford could bring to the table. Stafford could implode, but he could bring that high end to the table. I would say the Rams are a little bit scarier than the Cardinals for all NFC teams at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Steve Palazzolo on the Out of Bounds Show talking NFL. Big weekend. And what's great is we get 2 games on Saturday and then the full slate of games on Sunday. Steve joins us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. Pro Football Focus, great site, pff.com. So with Seattle, if you had to bet $50 right now, you think Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson are gone in 2022? And Pete, I guess, maybe retires and Russell's somewhere else?
I think one of them, maybe. I don't know about both.
Okay.
I could see them shaking it up, and it's in part because of just where the roster is as well. Without a first-round draft pick, with all the draft capital they've traded away, with Russ trending in the wrong direction and the off-season rumblings, yeah, I could see it. I could see one of them being gone. And I thought one of the writers from The Athletic did a good job kind of laying out those scenarios. If Pete left and they left John Schneider in charge, he's pretty much the GM, but him and Pete Carroll have personnel control together. So if you lost one of those guys, if you lost Pete, and then it'd be John Schneider and Russell Wilson building it, or if you lose Russ and you let Schneider and Pete Carroll rebuild the thing with a new quarterback, I could see either of those scenarios potentially happening.
Okay. Who's your MVP, Rodgers or Brady?
It's Brady. It is Tom Brady. I wrote it at PFF.com yesterday for multiple reasons. The higher volume that Brady has brought to the table, I think, is more valuable for the football team. The Bucs have relied on him more than they've relied on Aaron Rodgers. We have Brady graded slightly higher than Rodgers because we grade every play of the entire season, which includes Week 1, where Aaron Rodgers' Week 1 against the Saints was actually worse than Brady's Week 15 against the Saints. That's the thing that's kind of keeping Brady out of the MVP conversation right now. I don't care about why Rodgers missed the game, but he missed a game too. You're not adding any value to your team in that week. And Brady has the MVP moments as well. He had the walk-off win against the Bills in overtime. He had the borderline walk-off 93 yards with no timeouts, needing a touchdown last week. So I just think Brady has done more for his team, been more valuable, played a little bit better than Aaron Rodgers, and done it better from start to finish. In all of the stats that point toward Aaron Rodgers, I think there's dropped interceptions that have gone against Brady. Rodgers hasn't had those. There's all these things that I think add up to Tom Brady being the MVP of the league.
Okay, who do you like better? You may flip on this. And fair enough, they're both great. They've had great years. It's just been so much fun watching them. And I gather it's super close. Which way you would go. Which team do you like better as we're going into January and we start the playoffs next week, Steve?
I like the Packers. I liked the Packers last year at this time too. So obviously was wrong on that, but I think the Packers, not just because, hey, they might get one of the best left tackles in the league back in David Bakhtiari, Jair Alexander at corner could come back. But I think last year at this time, I loved the Packers, but I also thought that they were a little top-heavy and too reliant on Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and Jair at corner. And the rest of the roster was, just okay. I thought last year Rodgers was a clear MVP because him and Devontae carried that team. This year, I think it's well spread out. And that's good if you're a Packers fan. I think the defense is capable of turning the ball over, of getting pressure. Rashawn Gary has stepped up. Rasul Douglas has stepped up. Devondre Campbell. I think it's a much more well-rounded Packers team this year. And then, by the way, they might get some other great players back as well. So, I like the Packers, whereas the Bucs, receiver injuries, defensive back injuries, the defense has been kind of hit or miss this year. I think the Bucs are still really good, but they're dealing with a few more question marks, I think, than the Packers this season.
Okay, sorry, back. I just had a listener with a question. Steve Palazzolo joining us, senior analyst, NFL insider, great website, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. He's on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. So, knowing what you know about the Dallas Cowboys going into this weekend, would you sit or maybe not everybody, Steve, but Stephen Jones was on 105.3 The Fan earlier in the week and said we're not sitting players. Would you sit some players that are banged up, knowing what you've got to go through? Well, everybody, but knowing what you've got to go through in the playoffs this weekend at Philly?
I think I think if guys are banged up, for sure. I wouldn't sit guys across the board. And you can't really sit players across the board in the NFL anyway. You don't have enough backups to go around. But
true.
It's a tough one. I've seen this go both ways. You've seen teams rest players. You've seen them rest players, then have a bye, and then come back rusty. You've seen them come back and dominate their games. You've seen players, play all the way through. Like the Bucs played all their players all the way through last year and then won 4 games in the playoffs, right? I mean, you've seen it work both ways. But I would lean toward at least getting guys healthy as much as possible if they're iffy, because, the difference between who you're going to play, Rams, Cardinals, whatever it might be, isn't big enough that I need to try to dictate that this week against the Eagles.
Okay. All right. So with the Saints, and they play at the Falcons, and Sean and Dennis Allen and Loom, all these guys have been able to do this. I think Sean is so good, and they're kind of figuring it out on offense, but they're phenomenal on defense. But, I mean, they really don't have a chance. How do you see it, Steve? They really don't have a chance to make any noise. It's great if they make it, an unbelievable accomplishment. But with guys like Brady and Rodgers in the NFC, you don't see a lot of, firepower being able to make it through the NFC in the playoffs, right, considering what they are?
No, I don't. I mean, obviously the defense is capable of those high-end games. They gave up 3 total points to Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers across 2 different games. I know they gave up 30 or whatever to Brady in a different game, but clearly they're capable of those high-end games defensively. But they haven't figured out on offense. They haven't figured out how to work with Taysom Hill the best. The Eagles have done a great job building around Jalen Hurts, building that rushing game and all that stuff that I was just talking about. I thought that the Saints would kind of lean that way, but they've also had their own offensive line injuries, and they're not the same team up front. If they could somehow come together on that front, right, which is the line comes back together, they're using Taysom not as a run-first quarterback, but you're really running him 10, 12, 15 times in a game with Kamara back there working off of that. I think there's a world where the Saints could go in and slow down a game and play great defense and, cause some havoc. But, certainly I'm not looking at the playoff picture and saying, watch out, the Saints are going to make a run. I'm not expecting it, but there is this world where if they could figure it out on offense, build around Taysom's run-first skill set, that there's, they could maybe cause some damage for some of the better teams.
Let's go to former LSU national champion in your backyard, Joe Burrow, right, and Jamar Chase. Talk about what y'all see from Burrow and what a year he's having and how remarkable he and the Bengals have been on offense, Steve.
So he's just moved into the number 1 spot in our QB grading. He's just edging out Brady, and so he's playing incredible ball, throwing the ball great. And what we've seen from the Bengals is a team that early in the year was really trying to protect Joe Burrow, trying to keep him healthy, making him hand it off to Joe Mixon 25, 30 times in a bunch of games. There was a game in the second half earlier this year where Burrow threw the ball 3 times, whatever it was. 2 weeks ago against the Ravens, they completely opened it up. They said, look, part of it's just Joe Burrow's playing well, give him the ball. But they attacked a depleted Ravens secondary, and they said, wow, we could throw for 500 yards. This is incredible. And then they did it again last week against the Chiefs. So Burrow has been just incredible, throwing the ball down the field, making some magic happen, avoiding sacks, making plays, throwing the ball down the field. Jamar Chase looks like he's uncoverable, even as a rookie. But it's also the emergence of T. Higgins, a huge, big-bodied receiver who's like a basketball player, tough rebounder type. His emergence just makes this Bengals offense so tough to cover. Go cover Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I think they're just starting to figure out, hey, that's our best bet. We've got good running backs catching the ball out of the backfield. If we put the ball in Burrow's hands, we could be an explosive offense. And that's what we've seen these last 2 weeks in two huge games against the Ravens to win, and then against the Chiefs to seal the deal, win the division. And it was one of the biggest games in recent Bengals franchise history that they could beat the Chiefs and do it with their new franchise quarterback, Joe Burrow, making play after play.
Man, he is fun to watch. Joe Burrow putting on a show in Cincinnati and stealing an AFC North title over the Steelers and the Ravens. That doesn't happen. What are you sold he's a star in the?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting because I a million times I've said on this show, like, I don't know. I don't think there's been a clear, like, who are the top 8 or 10 quarterbacks for the next 10 years, right? Who are the guys that you're expecting? I think coming into the season, it was still to be determined. I think you could see Burrow certainly in that mix. I'm more convinced about Justin Herbert being in that mix or Josh Allen being in that mix now that he's put together 2 good seasons in a row, right? So I think that's starting to become more defined, and Burrow, who was very good as a rookie before he got hurt, has been great this year and has certainly put himself in that conversation that, he is a potential future star here.
Pro Football Focus, Steve Palazzolo on the Bells Two-Hearted L guest line talking NFL. Steve, who would you take today, Burrow or Herbert?
I would take Burrow. I always would have taken Burrow. I could absolutely see the argument for Herbert. Herbert is more, I hate using the word talent, but he's got a better arm. So it feels like he can do more things. I haven't seen the Chargers really open that up for him yet, so I think there's more to tap into there for the Chargers and Herbert throwing the ball down the field. But Burrow he's accurate. He's accurate in the right places. He's tough, and I hate using the word it factor, but sometimes you just see it, and Burrow seems to have it, right? Even at LSU, he didn't have a bad game. And I know he was throwing to Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, but he didn't have a bad game. There was no point where Burrow showed weakness in that final season, and they won the national title in dominant fashion. And I think Burrow just has that ability to just step up his game when they need it, and I think we've seen it these last 2 weeks. So give me Burrow over Herbert right now with a slight edge.
Okay, let's go to the AFC. Well, we were just in the AFC, but let's go to the Tennessee Titans, a team close to us with A.J. Brown and Jeffrey Simmons. I know they're playing the Texans this weekend, but what do you see as we march into the playoffs from the Titans? And would you be surprised if I know they've already made it with Vrabel and the crew, but would you be surprised if they landed in the AFC Championship game, Steve?
I wouldn't be surprised. No, I mean, the Titans, they're one game away from having the number 1 seed in a year where it felt like, to me, their roster was so dependent, their success was so dependent on A.J., Julio Jones, and Derrick Henry. And they didn't have those guys for the majority of the year, and they're still, with a revolving door of players at almost every position, they're still sitting there playing for the number 1 seed right now. So, and the Titans, in the middle of the year, had this incredible stretch of games where they just beat good teams over and over and over again. So it wouldn't surprise me, especially with Derrick Henry coming back, with AJ, trying to find his speed, and maybe we'll see what Julio can bring to the table here. So Titans have been really impressive. Defensive line getting pressure with Simmons. The defensive backfield's overachieved. Tannehill's played good ball again, despite now their revolving door at receiver. So, yeah, I think the Titans, and I think Vrabel might be coach of the year. I don't know how he would get my vote, the way he stepped this thing together and has the number 1 seed on the table against the Texans, despite all the adversity that they faced.
Man, he's damn good. What about Carson Wentz and the Colts? They fell apart down the stretch. Is this it for Carson Wentz?
I mean, he's been hit or miss. You've seen some games where 2 weeks ago against Arizona, he was awesome. He had a good game and then made some huge plays. He just didn't show up nearly enough against the Raiders last week. Jonathan Taylor, like every running back, should never be in the MVP conversation because you just can't carry a team the entire season at the running back position, even if you are Derrick Henry. There are games you just can't, and you see those games where Jonathan Taylor isn't a massive factor. But I really like the Colts roster all around. I think their offensive line is great. They do have the ability to win with that rushing a game. And Wentz is just another one of those mid-tier quarterbacks. As soon as you believe in him, he'll let you down. As soon as you give up on him, he'll come back and make plays. I think that's who Wentz is. You know, just like remember early last decade, you had Eli Manning goes on a run and Joe Flacco goes on a run. You know, Carson Wentz is that QB. You're just kind of hoping he can go on that playoff run. You know, put together 4 games in a row. You know, and just kind of hope he gets hot. So that's all possible. It's still on the table for the Colts, and they should be in the playoffs if they could just beat Jacksonville here this weekend.
Perfect. We'll leave it there. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com, senior analyst, NFL insider. He joined us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. Thanks, Steve Palazzolo. Appreciate it, buddy. Talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.
See you, dude. All right. Blake Scott, let's talk a little NFL to wrap this up. So we've got a battle of the Alabama quarterbacks this weekend. Blake says he's locked into that. Mac Jones with the New England Patriots, Alabama national champ. Going down to South Beach, Blake. Hey, Blake, I got a question. Tomorrow? I think it's tomorrow. Yeah. I think they go ahead and fly out on Friday, not Saturday morning. Anyway, when you're in Boston and you get to fly down to South Beach and spend right at 48 hours or more down there and get away from that Boston weather, how happy do you think the New England Patriots are?
Oh, that's the reason Bill Belichick's so successful. He can force everyone to just work all time because they can't go outside. That's why if you put Belichick down in Miami, he'd have been nobody.
Oh, man. So it's going to be 80 degrees in Miami this weekend. And the Patriots play, it's CBS game, 325. Patriots play at the Dolphins. Bama built.
That's 80 degrees.
Built Bama. What is it?
Built by Bama, yeah.
Built by Bama.
At 80 degrees in Miami, and what do we say the kickoff temperature for Dak and the Cowboys in Philly was? Like 24 or something like that?
Yeah.
25, yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Okay, so there you go. You get a you get a warm game in Miami, and then same thing, the Buccaneers are hosting a game this weekend, and it's 80 in Tampa. So not a bad deal there. I don't see what the weather's going to be like, but we can look it up in Las Vegas. The Raiders host the Chargers.
That's indoor, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Thank you very much, Blake.
That's the new Death
Allegiant
Star.
Stadium.
Yeah.
Do they have the retractable roof? Like
no.
Okay.
I think they have some windows on the sides of the building that are open. Like they got some open air stuff that kind of like allows wind flow through, maybe, but not. It's not like the way the Cowboys or the Atlanta Falcons dome opens in the middle. It's not the same.
Not the same. All right, cool. Well, look at this, man. I mean, the Jaguars, the Dolphins, and the Buccaneers all host games with the temps over 75 degrees.
I think there's 7 teams that still are competing for potential playoff spots, not seeding, but like actually like if you win, you have a chance to get in, and Saints. If you lose, you're out. Saints, 49ers, Rams, and Cardinals. Cardinals are in, but the Rams, 49ers are trying to figure out can they get in as wild cards versus win the division. Saints are trying to get in. There's a few more on the AFC side, so it'll be exciting to see, how that plays out. And for the Saints / the Falcons, can an NFC South rival keep you out of the playoffs?
Oh, wow.
A little hatred right there, so we'll see.
And Blake, as you know, the 49ers and Rams play this weekend.
That's right.
Yeah. So Shanahan and McVay square off in L.A. In SoFi Stadium. Did you see the rumors about the Super Bowl, Blake? Ooh, we may have to hit on that on the other side. Ooh, rumors about the Super Bowl. Goodness gracious. The Out of Bounds Show. ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Brought to you by RPT and Rick's Pro Trucks. Spraying bedliners and lift kits. RPT. Rick's Pro Truck. Back in a sec.